Good morning, 8th grade. Welcome to day 4 of week 5, April 23rd. I just want to show you what you are responsible for today. But before I do that, I just want to bring your attention to something that I posted to the stream yesterday. This isn't for everyone, but it is for the students that have not submitted their classwork assignment from Monday, Tuesday, or both. You had all of these different ways to submit those assignments, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because first of all, I need to be able to assess your understanding of graphing systems, so I need to see your work and you actually doing the graphing, and also because the evidence of mastery that is scheduled for next week, it's going to be in this format because we need to assess the work that you have to do to get to the answers. So I really would like you guys to take the time to figure out which one of these options works best for you. And if you have any questions or problems or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll help you figure out, some way for you to get these assignments completed. All right, so I'm going to go to the classwork tab. I'm going to go to day 4. We are starting a new topic today, still with systems, but it's a different way of solving for the solution of a system of equations. It's called the substitution method. So here's the lesson. There's 2 additional links for support that walk you through exactly what I'm going to model in the lesson. This is the link that I sent to most of you yesterday to review ahead of time, so I hope that you did. I'm going to open this up. Notice our target is going over the substitution method. The warm-up is giving you a system and identifying if it's parallel or perpendicular. At this point, you should be able to identify this by looking at the slopes. So I notice that the slopes are negative reciprocals of each other because they are flipped and are opposite signs. So these would be perpendicular lines. Okay? So today we're going to be focusing on the substitution method. You are still identifying a solution to the system of equations, but instead of graphing, you're going to solve it algebraically. So there's the link again here for support if needed. And I'm going to model this for you now. So notice that the 2 equations in your system are both equal to y. So this is how we are going to use our substitution method. Okay, so I wrote that same system on my board. And what you're going to do is, since they are both equal to y, what we can do is we can take one of the expressions. So I'm going to take x plus 6, circle it, and instead of saying that y equals negative x plus 4, we're going to take x plus 6 and substitute it in for y because we know that y equals x plus 6. So instead of saying y equals negative x plus 4, we're going to say x plus 6 equals negative x plus 4. Okay? So we are taking what one of our equations equals, the expression on the right side, and we're substituting it in for y because that's what y equals. So we're just replacing y with the right side of the equation. And then this is pretty simple, guys. We're going to just solve like we normally would. We have variables on both sides, so we have to pick an anchor. So I'm going to keep this x here, and I'm going to inverse negative x by adding x to both sides. So these x's would cancel, and I know here there's really a 1 in front of these x's, so 1x plus 1x is 2x. Bring down plus 6 equals, and I bring down 4. Now, I know that I do not want to move this 4 because if I inverse 4, there'll be nothing left on this side. So I have to inverse the constant here of 6. So I'm going to minus 6 from both sides. 6 minus 6 would cancel out. Bring down the 2x equals 4 minus 6 is negative 2. And then we divide by 2. So I would wind up getting x equals negative 1. Okay, so this is part 1. Part 1 is substituting in the equation for y, solving it using your previous understanding of equations, and finding the value of x. Okay, now part 2, you are going to pick either equation. Okay, it doesn't matter which one you pick. both are fine. I'm going to pick this one just because x doesn't have a negative and I don't usually prefer negatives. So I'm going to rewrite this equation over here. I'm going to write y equals x plus 6. And because I now know what x equals, x is -1, I'm going to plug it in for x to figure out what y is. Because remember, in a solution, we need an x and a y. It's a point. So I'm going to rewrite this as y equals, I'm going to put -1 for x and plus 6. Okay, so I substituted in our value of x in one of the two equations. I then just simplify. -1 plus 6 would be 5. And now we have our value for y. So the last thing you have to do is just identify your point, which is your solution. So you write your solution and you write it as a coordinate. Remember, coordinates always x comma y. So it's going to be -1 comma 5. And that's your final answer. Okay, so I'll take you through it one more time. Here was our part 1, right? You substitute that one equation in for y, you solve for x, and then you pick either of the two equations from the system to plug in that value of x to solve for y. And then you write your solution as a point. Okay, here are some steps in case, I know some people like the steps because it's just very easy to follow. So they're here for you. There's another example for you to try, but I'm going to just skip these for now because I want to show you that here. So sometimes your system, instead of it being y equals like we saw here, see how it's y equals and y equals? Sometimes your system might be x equals and x equals. But again, they're both solved for x, so we can do the same thing. So I'm going to model this one for you just for an additional example. And then I'll show you guys what you're responsible for the rest of the day. So we have x equals 3y minus 6, and we have x equals y plus 2. Okay, so here's our system. We're going to do the same thing. I'm going to pick one of what the x equals. So I'm going to pick the top one. I'm going to say, okay, if x equals 3y minus 6, then I'm going to substitute that in for x in my second equation, since that's what x equals. So I'm going to rewrite this so that instead of writing x, I'm going to write what x equals. X equals 3y minus 6, and then I just put the other side that's there, equals y plus 2. Okay, so that's your step 1. Circle which one you're going to substitute, put an arrow to show where you're putting it, and then rewrite your equation. And now we're just going to solve like we normally would. So again, variables on both sides. We want to pick an anchor. I'm going to keep 3y there and subtract y. Okay, 3y minus, this is really 1y, would be 2y. Bring down minus 6 equals y minus y cancels out. I would be left with 2. And now I'm going to move my constant of minus 6 and add 6 to both sides. That would cancel. I'd be left with 2y equals 8. And then we would divide by 2. So y equals 4. Now, this one's just a little different because remember before we got x equals some number. This time we're getting y equals some number because our equations were in the form x equals. Okay, so we know what the y value is to our solution. We now need to figure out x. So again, you're going to go to your system. You're going to pick either equation. I feel like this one's pretty easy because it's just y plus 2. So I'm going to rewrite that one over here. You can pick either one. Oops, I wrote it wrong. X equals y plus 2. And then you plug in the value that you got for y. So y is 4. So I'm going to rewrite this as x equals y is 4 plus 2. And then I simplify. X equals 4 plus 2 is 6. And now I know what the x value is for my solution. So if we have x and y, we can now write our final answer. So we're going to put solution. And remember, it's always in the form x comma y. So we're going to put 6 comma 4. And that's it. This is our final answer. Okay, so it's a little tedious. You definitely need to pay attention to details. There's a lot going on here to get to that answer, but this is definitely something that we will be building on. So please make sure you take the time today to really focus on this and master this understanding, because we're going to just keep moving forward with this foundation. Okay, so here's that problem that I just did for you. What the? Did I do something wrong here? Oh, you know what? I wrote my problem incorrect on the slide. I'm going to fix that for you guys for tomorrow. Okay, and then here's your you do. Okay, so you're going to answer that in a Google form. It's going to be 4 systems, and you are solving using the substitution method. So exactly what I just modeled for you. Here's your system. Use the steps, circle, arrow, plug it in, solve for the one variable, pick either one of the 2 equations, substitute that variable in, solve for the other, and then you write your solution in the form x comma y. All right, I hope this helped. Again, if you go to the lesson, there are these 2 other links as well. This guy really walks you through it pretty well, so I would say, like, look at that if you're still a little confused. All right, stay safe. Talk to you tomorrow.